So let's talk about the PM being booed at the tennis, shall we? We all know he's fresh off the back of his latest election promise failure, another betrayal of the Australian people. So he decided to spend some quality time at the Australian Open this weekend. And this is how the announcement of his presence was received by 15,000 Aussies present.
On behalf of Tennis Australia, I'd like to welcome Victorian Governor, Her Excellency, the Honourable Professor Margaret Gardner, the Australian Prime Minister, the Honourable Anthony Albanese, the Deputy Victorian Premier, the Honourable Ben Carroll.
I mean, that is a robust booing. That was not some strange rando just being like, ugh. I mean, it really took off. You heard that, right? So what does the PM do when asked about it this morning on radio? Totally dismisses it, says it's normal.
Do you have thick skin, Anthony, or does that still sort of get to you? I mean, a crowd of people booing, you know?
Oh, no, it's an Australian tradition.
Australian tradition? This isn't the AFL, mate. These are highbrow tennis goers, very expensive seats in the house, being the grand final. This was a 15,000 strong arena full of people you just screwed over, mate. You'd promised them over 100 times you were going to deliver on those tax cuts. This was the upper end of town. Who else can afford those tickets? And they're not forgetting what you said you'd do for years, and now you've completely screwed them over. I love this. It's just poetic justice.
How glad would Elbow have been that the lights were down when that announcement was made so that he could kind of hide? Because that was a robust, as you said, boo. It was also a prolonged boo. I mean, it went on. The MC, it was actually an awkward moment. He tried to stop them, then he just gave up, stood there quietly for a moment, and then continued over the top of them.
It was a pretty good boo there. I mean, we shouldn't get too cocky about it because Scott Morrison was booed at the Australian Open in 2019 and then went on to pull off the unwinnable election 4 months later. So, you know, let's not say that Albo is done quite yet.
But this is the timing of it is beautiful.
Of course.
I mean, whoever his advisor is, get a clue, mate. I've been an advisor before. I would not be advising my boss after he single-handedly flipped the bird to all the wealthy people in mostly his electorates, by the way. There all those wealthy seats held by the Teals, the Greens, Labor. Seriously, dude, what are you doing? And then attends one of the most highbrow sporting events
But Liz,
you can possibly attend.
If he didn't go to the tennis, he would have had to, you know, go to Alice Springs or something like that.
No.
He
could have gone to the cricket to watch us lose against West Indies, I suppose, was the alternative. But Jacqui Lambie sort of made this point as well today about, all these rich people going on at Elbow.
Well, we've got a heap of rich people over there watching the tennis finals there. They've had a bit of their tax taken off them to pay it forward to give to those who are less fortunate. For God's sakes, I don't have a problem with that.
Well, that's good for you, Jacqui. But as you pointed out before, the problem for Albanese is a lot of the people who were in there last night and paid their upwards of $1,000 for a ticket, amongst all the other ones who went along for free because they were in corporate boxes, never mind. But, you know, they are people who fundamentally would be living in Teal and or Labor seats, as seems to be the case now. If you look at the top 20 richest seats in the country, they're dominated by Teals, Greens and Labor. And these are the people that Albanese needs to worry about in terms of retaining government, because I don't think it will be enough. The changes he's made to the tax cuts will be enough to sway outer suburban seats, but what it could do is have an impact on those inner suburban seats that he needs to hold on to retain government.
Jacqui Lambie makes a few assumptions there. The assumption that it's all rich people who are booing, I'm not so sure I agree with that, because for a lot of people, an Australian Open final is like a bucket list thing. If North Melbourne ever make the AFL Grand Final, which is highly unlikely, I'll sell my sister's kidneys to afford a ticket. And so they'll never be on a dialysis machine because we'll never make the Grand Final. But I would spend any amount. So there would be a number of people there who, they're not wealthy, they just sacrificed to fulfil a lifelong dream. Also, she assumes they're booing because of his backflip on the tax cuts. Well, maybe, but I can think of a dozen other reasons why 15,000 people would boo Anthony Albanese, and we won't list them all now because we go through them pretty much every single night.
15,000 people could each have had a different reason, and all of them would be legitimate.
But the thing that I really don't like about what Jacqui Lambie said is she implies that it's okay to break a promise if you're breaking a promise to those who are wealthier than you are. And that's the politics of envy, which is a very dangerous argument to make because it's always going to come back and bite you. And Jacqui Lambie, God love her, but next time she talks about integrity or talks about, or laments the fact that trust has been lost in politicians, remind her of those comments because they don't serve her well.
Indeed, and she's also comfortable enough to know that if she spends enough time in Parliament, she's lined up for a very nice pension afterwards as well. So she doesn't have too much to worry about in losing out on the tax cut changes.